So I haven't done one of these one-off recordings in a while, but I just have OBS set to record the still image of this message that I got an hour before my final project submission was submitted by them. It ain't good. It's garb. So to understand, to contextualize just fully what this message means, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm not going to reveal the moral of the story before I've even started telling it. Don't trust anyone. Don't ever trust anyone. If a person has power over your future, don't fucking trust them. Ever. Just fucking don't. It's not a good sign, is it? So, rewind to about 11 to 12 weeks ago when this project was kind of started and our partnership, shall we say, was formed to actually carry out the details of this final project. We split it into two halves. What we originally planned was I was going to do the back end while they did the front end. How it ended up being is that I did the implementation and they did the design. That's but whatever. So long as the design that they had was at least passable and made sense, then we would have something usable. We would have something that we could actually deal with. I could then take what the design that they made, adjust it a little bit, and and then we'd be good. Then we'd be good. So I'd have to say about 4 weeks before the deadline. Um, that was basically ample time for my partner to finish their end of the bargain. To do the design, they basically submitted the design for review to the professor. They made comments on it and sent it back so that we could uh, do fix it up for a better grade. That's all. That's all good, except when my partner received their feedback for their design. What we ended up getting was a 4 paragraph essay as to just how shit it was. I'm not kidding. Like 4 paragraphs. And so this design, which included like UML sequence diagrams, UML class diagrams, I'm not going to go into too much into detail as to what they look like because I want this video to be public and I don't have to worry about in the future getting knocked for some sort of academic dishonesty for revealing the information of of a final project that the professor probably reuses every single year and every single semester. I don't want to have to deal with that. But there were so many problems. There was a lack of core specifications that the design required to use. For example, there were supposed to be common programming patterns included into this design, and they were not present at all. The design was supposed to follow model view architecture. It did not. The design clearly had no understanding of how basically Swing worked, which was the GUI framework that we were tasked to use. They, it, there were like arrows included that didn't exist, um, stuff like that, and there were also a lot of unnecessary classes that didn't need to be there. Stuff like that. It was just overall bad, terrible. He didn't even do some of it. Some of it was actually reused, or not reused. It was actually outsourced to his coworker because he has an internship in the frameworks department of a major company. I don't even know. I'm not gonna fucking question the decisions of other companies. It's none of my business. Um, I don't know how he got the internship. Apparently, they're just handing them out like candy. But whatever, not my place. So I get the design back, uh, with the comments, and my partner tells me that they wanted to fix up the design as per the professor's specifications, and then give me the fixed design so that I could do the implementation. Because apparently they're weak with the codes and stuffs. I'll leave it at that. Um, what ended up happening is that a week later, uh, my partner stated that they were having trouble with fixing up the design, and I gave them this specific instruction, which was 3 weeks, 3 entire weeks before the thing was due. Fix what you can, give me the rest. I will fix them, and then do the implementation. But I guess my partner had other ideas. He wanted the design to be all his, I guess. Because what he ended up doing was he took another 2 fucking weeks just getting absolutely nothing productive done. Apparently. Because, like, when I got the design a week later that was supposedly fixed, what I received was completely useless. Because I went to actually look for MVC, went to look for the programming patterns. They still weren't there, by the way. There were still no MVC architecture still wasn't there, and programming patterns still weren't there. It's like this is driving me nuts at this point. But I'm like, all right, I have work and remaining, classwork from other classes that I'm going to get done as soon as possible, and then just basically degen myself into spending 2 to 3 days on the implementation. Now, the deadline was at an inconvenient time because, like I said, I had to finish up homework, and then I had to worry about work. So what ended up happening is I would pull nights until 3, maybe 4, once 5 in the morning, just doing nothing but grinding out this project. I essentially had to do the design from scratch, but rather than make a UML class diagram, I instead just kind of did the implementation, basically made the application while I was kind of figuring out how to design it, because I didn't have a perfect picture of how how the application would work, and I figured that instead of blindly going off of a UML class diagram, I would instead just do the implementation. The whole reason why I had my partner do the design in the first place was because the design was not my strong suit. But that's kind of what happened. I did the entire implementation in the underlying design and the implementation in like 2 days, basically, where I spent at least 13 to 15 hours in the single in 24 in each 24-hour period working on this project, and it got to the point where the implementation was completely done, or not completely done. It was like almost done. The things that were left basically either didn't really matter to the grading or were dead fucking easy. Like, I wrote Java comments for most of the classes and methods. There were a few that I didn't have time to finish up, so I simply asked my partner to finish up the comments and then make diagrams for the design that was already implemented and documented in this code. Like, the comments that I didn't write were didn't really matter to the overlying design of the program. The ones that did matter, like the MVC architecture and the design patterns, were clearly indicated in the code of the program and the comments. So my thought was that if I gave my partner the working code for the project, the code is worth 30%, the design's worth 30%, and the functional specifications worth 20%, and or 20%. Or no, the design's worth 40%. The functional specification was worth 10 or 20%, and a working demo video of the program itself was worth 10%. That's at least going off of memory what like the grading breakdown was. I had basically as close to 100 on the implementation, at least what I thought was basically almost perfect, and I gave it to my partner and said, okay, pay attention to the comments to see how it works. Make the UML class diagram. I sent the code over time as I was doing it, so they had the opportunity to construct the UML class diagram as I was basically writing the code. So when I finished off, made the final commit to the repository, I told them the only thing I need you to do is to finish up some comments for some of the functions, fix up the design that's already there, just adjust things basically, adjust the sequence diagrams, finish the UML class diagram, fix the use cases, and fix the functional specification up a very small amount. This is stuff that would have taken me like at most 2 hours. Submitted it at 3. They got done at 10 because they needed to do other things, and it was due at midnight. Alright, so no worries. So I would leave for work at 3. I text him during my break, making sure he was doing fine. He was doing work. He wanted to fix up something in the code, but I essentially told him that you should focus on the things that are worth more points for now. And that's essentially telling him that he wasn't using his time very wisely, but whatever. So, text him, explained to him in detail how the code works, and then, then I had to go back to work. My hopes was that, he would just finish up the diagrams and, stuff like that. It wouldn't take him too long, and he would, make the video, which he did. And that's the one thing he actually did pretty well, was the demo video, which was like 3 minutes long. And then he compiled everything and submitted it somewhat to the specifications that he was supposed to submit everything in. The professor asked for everything in a singular PDF, including the code, which with all the names of the files clearly labeled. And then he wanted a zip file with a certain kind of like a certain directory tree, with all of the specified files in said tree. What I came back home from work to was a mess of a PDF where they included all of the old sequence diagrams, didn't change them a single fucking bit, and they were still wrong. They included the old use cases as well as the new use cases in the same document in different places. It contained the old UML class diagram, which was the ugliest fucking thing I've ever seen, as well as the new UML class diagram in different places, except the old one was just kind of slapped in there with everything just completely broken. I'm not even sure. And for the code that was supposed to have the file names on the top, he instead included the name of the package that it belonged to, which the first line of the code specifies the name of the package in each file. So I'm not really sure why they thought that was useful or helpful in any way, but they decided to do that anyway. I looked closer at the UML class diagram and discovered that it had some anomalies, like Some of the classes he didn't specify what the methods were, so they defaulted to method 1, method 2, and method 3. The methods that he included didn't have the parameters and return type in the correct format or UML compliance. The the accessor prefixes, the plus minus hashes in the beginnings of the function in the methods, and the member data types of each class, those were completely wrong. It's essentially silly when you look at a UML class diagram and you see getter and setter functions for a public member of a class. If you just look for 2 seconds and understand how to actually read the diagram. Like, I figured at this point that they would at least know how UML worked, but it had some of the problems of the old one too. It had like line types that didn't exist. They had a bunch of arrow types that didn't exist in UML. And I'm being distracted by hooligans blasting music outside at 2:40 in the morning in a parking lot where strict 24-hour quiet hours are being enforced. Alright. Stuff like this. Silly shit that shouldn't have existed. And then I look in the directory, the zip directory, the zip file that was submitted, which contained, the directories and stuff, except what he ended up doing was he just took my project directory for IntelliJ with all the source as well as all the project files, zipped that up, just threw the PDF in there, and submitted it. He forgot to specify he forgot to link the demo video, which I had to come back and point out to him while he was asleep, so he woke up and put it God knows where. He put it somewhere weird. I was flabbergasted as to how shit the project submission was. I could not believe my fucking eyes. They didn't he didn't bother exporting all of the java.comments into an HTML document like the professor asked. He didn't fix any of the old diagrams like I've already mentioned. He didn't, to be honest, he didn't do much. He essentially had 7 hours to do all this shit. How did he not get anything right? It saddens me, the fact that I had to pull it up with this bullshit. It concerns me. I have a 86, about an 86 in the class. That's a tentative percentage because Canvas isn't really accurate. This project is worth 25% of my grade. Worst case scenario, and this is kind of what I'm hoping the minimum hope that I have here is that I get a 50% on the project and pass with a 75% in the class. That's what I'm aiming for. What I hope doesn't happen is the professor sees that this is so, didn't really comply with the directions for submitting it and just gives us a 0 or doesn't bother grading it at all. And that was all 5 days ago. Pretty much exactly 5 days ago. I emailed the professor on that night asking if I could have an opportunity to essentially resubmit the entire project because I was screwed over by my partner and because I recognized that it was awful and I wanted to essentially make it better. He never replied because this is fucking FAU. No one ever fucking replies to their fucking emails. And this project isn't graded. I don't know when the grades for the projects are going to be released. I don't know if I'm going to get an opportunity to fix anything. I don't know if I'm going to pass the class, period. Essentially saying, if I don't pass this class, I have to take it again, and I lose all of my scholarships because they, require me to pass all my classes. So if I fail one of them, I'm completely fucked out of thousands and thousands of dollars per semester. And the classes that I'm taking next semester that have this class as a prerequisite, I'm not going to be able to take, and which is going to completely fuck over my schedule for the future. I'm going to be screwed beyond belief, and I have to look at my mother and tell her in her face that I failed a class because I got a dipshit partner that I trusted. So let this be a moral of the story here. Don't trust anyone. I trusted this person when they said that they were going to fix everything up and submit to me, a fixed version of what they had in a timely manner. They didn't do that. I never got it. I had so much going on at the time that it was kind of pushed to the back of my mind. I was focused on the short term rather than this long term disaster that was going to occur that I couldn't fix simply because my partner was an absolute dipshit and couldn't fix the absolute fucking simplest of things. If you look at sequence diagrams and you see classes that don't exist, if you look at the use cases and you see classes that don't exist, if you look at the fucking sequence diagram and see the name of a class with methods of a class that don't fucking exist, how did that even happen? He did it directly from the code that I gave him. The class didn't fucking exist. Where did he get it from? Why is it there? Like I said, I actually made a videos unlisted, kind of going through everything that was wrong, but I don't want to release it publicly, because of the reasons that I said earlier. But don't trust anyone. Honestly, the fact that this final project was my final exam grade, and that I have been fucked over in 25% of my grade, that my GPA is going to drop, no doubt, and my professor's not going to show me any mercy because he didn't even fucking see my email or care. Never trust anyone. I trusted this person, and I suffered the consequences. Don't let what happened to me happen to you. Don't trust anyone. Ever. Thank you. Thank you for watching and listening to my rants. And take care.